first. So, oops, hang on, adjusting this. Hello, everybody. There we go. Okay, YouTube, good enough. Actually, let me move this over. I still want to move this over more. There we go. Because this way I'm looking directly at my camera on YouTube. Hold on. Hello, TikTokers. There we go. All right. Camera is hopefully moving enough for the day. There we go. All right. Welcome, everybody. Hey, guys. Hey, TikTok. Hey, YouTube. Oh, I got to print my notes. I'm doing it again. I'm very absent-minded now that I'm in Chicago. Hold on. I've got to print my notes for the show. I've got 5 pages of notes of news to talk about with you guys. So it's a good amount. Thus, I need printed out, but we'll wait a second. I am good today, Walden. How are you? How's everybody doing? Big glass of water. Couldn't be happier. I'm still losing weight, though. I have to get out of Chicago. I've lost more weight. I'm like, my belt loop is now too not tight enough. I'm like, all right, I don't need to, I can't afford it, but I don't need to lose more weight. Hey, Diana. Hey, Vicky. Hey, Iggy. And Vicky, multiple gifts there. Anyway, how is everybody doing today? Otherwise, it's Friday. It's a little, I mean, it's warm. It's like 70, but it's cold, and I'm not quite sure why. My fingers are even doing that weird crinkly thing, which is weird because it's like 70 degrees, but it's not. My hands are cold. I'm becoming old. Ooh, that's all right. The house is supposedly 70, like it's 70 outside and 70 inside, but it just feels cold to me. Oh, I'm going to grab my notes. 1 second. Notes just printed. One moment. One moment. There we go. All right. Okay. All right. I've got my notes for the show. We are ready. Ooh, wind chill inside the house, maybe. Yeah, a little weird. No, today was a beautiful day in Chicago. Oh my God. Oh, the AC's off. Trust me. The AC's been off for a couple of weeks here in Chicago. Hey, Larissa, thank you for the gift. Oh, we're going to be talking about Ukraine. As always, I'm going to start with the U.S. election first. We're going to talk about Ukraine. We're definitely talking about the North Korean troops in Ukraine. That's a big story. It's a huge story. Huge story. So we'll talk about that. But as I said, I want to talk about the autograph and auction your notes. I mean, I could. I don't know whether it's like I always feel like that's geeky or something. Thank you, Vampy. Thank you, Cool. Because I do notes for every show. I've got 5 pages. I do 2-sided. I try to do them a little, try to be environmentally conscious. But, we can start with Ukraine. I don't really care either way. Hey, Ann. Thank you for the gift. Carol as well. Yeah, cool wants one. Are you not? I'm definitely a geek as far as, I'm absolutely a geek. That is not in question ever. I would definitely consider myself a geek in many ways. For example, I've been binging on Charmed lately, which I think is a little geeky, for me at least. Anyway, well, we'll see. I could auction off notes. It's a little weird, but I can. I feel like it's like auctioning off my clothes or something. my used notes. Anyway, thank you, Richard. Thank you. Who's it? Alan Bash. Thank you. Oh, the ghost. I should have put more ghost stuff. That's right. We're still got Halloween coming. I brought Sasha's old Charmed, of course. I would never watch new Charmed. I tried. It was horrible. Oh, I am a total Buffy guy. Are you kidding? Let's not get onto TV shows or we're never going to stop. But I'm a huge Buffy fan. Oh, my God. Thank you, Ghost Hunter, for the gifts. I do love those. The little baby ghosts are fun. Thank you, Red Watts. Anyway, so welcome, folks. We are. I still think I'm going to start with the election because I've got the election stuff first. We'll get to Ukraine next. We're going to do both topics today: latest election news and then latest Ukraine news. So let's dive right in. Remember tomorrow morning, by the way, we've got our coffee talk. So for the paid subscribers on TikTok and YouTube, I do a special show every Saturday for you guys, 10:30 a.m. Central Time, that's Chicago time, 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time, that's Washington, D.C. or New York City. And we hang out, we talk. It's a much more, thank you. I always wanted to see what that French baguette thing was. It's cute, or the potato. Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you, Bryce. But we do a show every Saturday morning just to kind of hang out with you guys, just for the paid subscribers. Thank you, Zexceed, as a thank you for you all. And it's a much more intimate crowd. And like we talk about stuff and I can read all your questions much more easily since now I've got like 5 pages of notes for today. Oh, thank you for that. Who's that? Hazel. Thank you, Randy, friend Hazel. Thank you, Elizabeth, Zexceed, and Bryce, and KT. Lots of gifts coming in. The Pumpkinhead. The Pumpkinhead's still there. I think it's still there. It must be because we're right before Halloween has not come yet. So I assume the Pumpkinhead is still there. Anyway, so yes, coffee talks tomorrow morning. Otherwise, let's get rolling on the election. Thank you, Randy and Fred. Keep the gifts coming, as always. I hate to like push the gift thing, but I do this for a living, and you guys help pay the bills. So thank you for that. Thank you, Ava. All right, let's get rolling. So Trump canceled another media appearance or interview yesterday. He's been doing this a lot lately. His aides, this is the weird part. Trump's aides put out the story that Trump canceled the most recent interview he was going to do because he's exhausted. And I read that and went, oh, someone's going to get fired. I mean, someone on Trump's staff thought the good explanation as to why a 78-year-old man running for president couldn't do more interviews, TV or press or whatever, is that he's exhausted and just can't do it. Thank you, Kat, and thank you, Diana, for the gifts. I mean, thank you, Chazak. I mean, like, exhausted, sure. You're exhausted and you can't visit 5 cities in one day, but you can't, like, do an interview with a newspaper because you're exhausted? Well, Trump turned around, of course, and tried to say, oh, I'm all vigor. I'm not exhausted. But a number of the different press sort of picked up on it and said there's something weird going on with him. Basically, in early August, this is from the Washington Post, they detailed it. In early August, the Washington Post reported that Trump's campaign schedule was far lighter than it had been when he ran for president in 2016 or 2020. His staff said, oh, we're planning lots of things. This is like the quiet before the storm. Get ready. The Post goes, in late September, Axios noted that the pace had not increased. Trump was holding fewer rallies than he had 8 years ago. And in recent days, even the number of interviews has slowed. He has canceled or refused a number of recent conversations, including ones from CBS News, NBC News, CNBC. He had been in conversation with a podcast called The Shade Room, according to Politico, but that too got canceled, Trump staff said, because he was exhausted. Guys, it is, like I said, you're 78 years old. Now, the age thing, who knows? In Biden's case, the age thing clearly hurt him, right? And Biden also had slowed down. Thank you, Randy. Trump has slowed down too. I mean, he showed up at this dinner last night. I think it's the Al Smith dinner. It's called. It was sort of made famous in West Wing at one point, and it's this sort of famous dinner the presidential candidates go to in New York. It's a charity for Catholic charities, and Trump showed up and Harris didn't. I think it was kind of inappropriate of her not to show up, to be honest, because she should be. I just think it was inappropriate. Whatever. Trump was tired. Trump was reading his jokes kind of like this, the way he was doing that speech last week. And you're just kind of going, dude, like Donald. Oh my God. Oh, there's a nickname. Too Much Ado said Donald, like OLD. Ooh, that's a Trumpian nickname. That's a Trumpian nickname. Trump would say, like, I'm calling him Donald, like old Donald, not Donald, Donald. And he would like say it like that. And he'd move his hands like this. In any case, not good news for Trump. Harris's campaign last week, because Harris is now jumping on this, and she's been hitting really hard at Trump on the he's just not doing well thing. She said, if you're exhausted on the campaign trail, it raises real questions about whether you are fit for the toughest job in the world. Last week, her campaign released records detailing her medical health and history, none of which indicated anything worthy of particular alarm. Washington Post adds, Trump suggested that Harris's allergies, which sometimes cause her to break out in hives, indicated she had, quote, serious conditions that clearly impact her functioning. Her allergies. Right? Like, okay. Thank you, Courtney, for the gift. Trump's 2024 campaign has declined to release medical records. Trump has refused to release his medical records again. Trump has never released his medical records. The first time around in 2016, he had that weird doctor that's died now that he apparently pressured. Some doctor he pressured to write a letter, a glowing recommendation for him that was bullshit. He's never released his medical records. After Trump got shot at, remember, and then something cut his ear, no medical records, no press conference about his health. Trump lied about COVID too. Remember when he had COVID? He lied about it. Didn't tell anybody he had COVID. Then he almost died from COVID. Didn't tell anybody. He routinely lies about his medical records. But the thing is, when Trump lies about his medical records, we always find out later he's literally hiding something real. Like COVID, he almost died. That's why he was lying. And what's he lying about now? Why isn't he releasing his medical records? Kamala Harris, and again, and to attack Kamala Harris for allergies and saying, oh, the allergies prove that she's unfit to be president. And you're morbidly obese in Trump's case. You're 78 years old. Trump says Trump was shot at. I'm not convinced he was shot. Maybe he was shot. Maybe the bullet hit his ear. Maybe it was glass. I don't know. But he was clearly shot at. We know that. let's take Trump at his word. You're 78 years old and you're shot. I want to see your medical records to make sure you're okay. If you're 78 years old and a bullet hits you, I think we deserve to know what kind of condition you're in, right? And frankly, the media has always dropped the ball, because the media should have said that to him. They should have said, fine, we accept the fact that you say the bullet hit you. Then why aren't you releasing your medical records, because you're 78 years old and you could be in real trouble if a bullet hit you. But it's Donald Trump. Thank you, NAR, for the potato Frenchman. A little more here. Trump. Oh, this is great. This story, I'm sorry, it cracked me up in a karma kind of way. Trump is in Michigan today. Michigan is is a state that has a lot of Arab American and Muslim Americans, especially Detroit, the lead, sort of the biggest city there, one of America's biggest cities. Trump goes to Michigan. He goes to some small town in Michigan, and there's an Arab American mayor who endorses Trump, a Republican. Oh, the Republicans are going to be great for the Arabs in the Middle East and this kind of crap, right? Trump shows up and gives remarks. I want to read you what Trump said right before he arrived in Michigan. So right before he went to the event to try to convince Arab Americans and Muslim Americans that he's going to be so much better on Israel and the Middle East and Gaza than Joe Biden. Here's what Trump said minutes before. Listen to this. Trump told reporters in Detroit that he planned to speak soon with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, and that he would tell the Israeli leader he was doing a good job in the war. Trump also criticized President Biden for trying to hold Netanyahu back. Trump thinks what's been happening in Gaza is really good. Trump thinks that it is wrong for Joe Biden to have tried to hold the Israelis back from killing more people. That he admits Biden tried. Biden has tried to get the Israelis to back off. And Trump thinks that's bad. Trump wants to let the Israelis do whatever they want. If you're an Arab American or a Muslim American and you are voting for this guy, you're out of your mind. That's why I'm laughing, because like I look at these political groups and the way they make decisions, and it's like, you know what? Seriously, good luck. But for Trump to say he's going to tell Netanyahu that you're doing a really good job in the war. Thank you, literally, Julian. I mean, right? There is a difference here, guys. And, unfortunately, and we've seen this before, unfortunately, there's a lot of voters. I don't know what it is, but they vote against their own interest. It's really kind of shocking to me, Anyway, a little more here. ABC. Oh, yeah. So some interesting polling articles I read, which I thought were kind of interesting. Listen to this. This is from ABC News, one of the big American news outlets. According to our polling averages, the margin between Trump and Harris is 2 percentage points or less in all 7 major swing states: Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. So in all the states, it's 2 points or less. That's within the margin of error. That means it's statistically a tie in all the key states. In our national average our average of national polls, Harris leads Trump by only 2 points. That is tighter than the margin between Trump and Biden on every day of the 2020 campaign, tighter than the margin between Trump and Hillary Clinton on every day between October 1st and Election Day of 2016. They then add, listen to this. Thank you, NAR. They then add something, ABC does, but I want to explain this again because even for Americans, this is confusing. I think for Europeans or other foreigners, it's really confusing. In America, you do not win the presidency by vote. You do. Thank you, Courtney. Thank you, NAR. Let me rephrase that. The person with the most votes doesn't win the presidency. That's not how it's done. Hillary Clinton had the most votes by 3 million votes. She lost. Al Gore had the most votes by 500,000 votes. He lost. You have to win certain key states. Thank you, Courtney. And each state has a point value allotted to it. Like Washington, D.C., which isn't a state, has 3 points. Alaska, I think, has 3 points. California, I always ask you guys, I think 54 points. You have to reach 270 points in order to become president. Doesn't matter how many votes you get. You've got to get the right number of states. That's why you see people talk about the national polls, but then they say, but you better look at the states. Because of the way the state system is set up, it favors Republicans. And that's why twice in the last 20 years, Republican presidents lost the election. Essentially, they didn't win the vote, the actual vote. They lost the vote, but they won twice. George Bush back in 2020, Donald Trump in 2016. Listen to this. ABC News says, because of the Electoral College's bias towards Republicans, our model currently estimates that Kamala Harris likely needs to win the national vote by 2 percentage points in order to be favored to win a majority of the electoral votes. Democrats have to win the election by 2% in order to win the actual weird way we count the votes in the states. So if a Democrat wins the election by 1%, it's not enough. They lose. 1.5%, they lose. They've got to win by 2 percentage points because that's how unfair the system is. It's crazy. It's absolutely insane. It's insane. The points are based on population to a degree. You get a minimum of 3 points even if nobody lives there. It's crazy. I mean, it's here's the other problem with doing it by points. This is what gets even more confusing. Even though they do it by population, if you get 50.1% of the vote in a state, you get all the electoral votes. If you get 99% of the votes in a state, you get all the electoral votes. So you can win the state just barely, but it's winner. Most states are winner take all. That's where it gets weird. So you can have a state like California that has tens of millions of voters. And if you win that state by 80% or something, it doesn't matter, even though you've gotten that many additional votes, because all you need is 50% plus 1 to take all the votes. Or take all the points. It's crazy. NBC, another big American news network, talked about voter enthusiasm today, which is kind of interesting. Listen to this. The latest NBC News poll contains this good news for Democrats. They've essentially caught up to the Republicans on enthusiasm about the upcoming election after trailing on this measure while Biden was in the race, meaning enthusiasm is just that. It's how excited are you about the election? It matters because people who are more excited turn out to vote. Right? It's raining that day. Are you going to go vote, right? You're not feeling well. Are you going to vote? If you're more excited and more energized, you might go. If you're, and now it's cold and it's raining, you might not turn out, right? It also affects whether you're going to give money to the candidates, right? It affects whether you're going to volunteer. It affects what you tell your friends, just the chatter of who you're going to vote for. If you go, well, I don't really, versus, oh no, Kamala Harris is great, right? That potentially influences your friends. Thank you, Bo, for the gift. Thank you, Luke. Keep sending the gifts, guys. Appreciate it. So Democrats finally caught up with the Republicans in terms of enthusiasm under Kamala Harris. That's important. But the problem is that some key parts of the Democratic coalition are still sitting on their ass, basically, and not getting excited about her candidacy. Thank you, Jorge. Listen to this. Black voters and young voters, according to NBC, are showing lower levels of high interest in the upcoming election than in any of the past 5 presidential cycles going back to 2004. So Black voters and young voters are basically less interested in this election than any election for the last five presidential elections. That's insane. I really like, thank you, Mike Gordon, for the gift. You've got a Black woman running for president, and the Black community doesn't care. I mean, again, I'm Greek. I'm ethnic American. You care about those things. I mean, I'm gay. If I had a gay candidate, it's part of the reason I like them. Like, it is insane to me as a hyphenated American. We say hyphenated, right? Like Greek American, gay American. As a hyphenated American, it's insane to me that any community wouldn't be excited that their person, Vivek Ramaswamy, whatever the hell his name is an idiot, but he's Indian American, and you ought to be excited about that. Kamala Harris is half Indian American. You ought to be excited about that if you're Indian. You just should. It helps your community. Blacks are not energized, apparently, or the lowest energy of 5 presidential elections in the Black community, and young voters. And I just freaking love the young voter crap. I just love the young voter crap. Again, you want all your sorry, my brother-in-law is messaging me. You want all your student loan forgiveness to go away? Vote for Donald Trump. That's fine. That's fine. The Democrats have tried to forgive billions of your student loans, and the Republicans have been suing in court, and Donald Trump wants to bring it back. You want to take away your health coverage? Go for it. Go for it. Vote for Donald Trump, right? You're upset about what's happening in the Middle East, and that's why you're not supporting Democrats when Donald Trump said today that he thinks what Israel is doing is a great job, and he's actually upset at Joe Biden for holding Israel back in its attack against the Palestinians. I mean, like I said, I have so little care to some degree for these groups in the sense of, if you want to do this to yourselves, a part of me goes, you know what? It's not my relatives that Donald Trump wants to kick out. It's not my relatives that Donald Trump wants to ban at the border. He wants to ban Muslims, people from the Middle East. He wants to ban people from Africa, from Latin America. Not going to, my family's Greek. We're fine, right? It's not going to hurt me. I mean, Donald Trump, of course, is going to hurt my country and I care. But like the black community, the guy literally has spent the last month telling people that black people eat cats and dogs and steal their neighbors' cats and dogs. Like, that should bother you if you're black. And I mean, I'm happy, and I am absolutely going to say that. And the same thing for young people. That you claim to care about the environment. Donald Trump's a disaster on the environment. Joe Biden is fabulous. On every freaking issue you care about, Joe Biden is fabulous, except on Gaza, except guess who's 1,000 times worse than Joe Biden on Gaza? Donald Trump. And yet you're going, well, I just don't know. I don't know. I'm confused. I just find it, I find it absolutely sickening, you know? It's sickening. Yeah, you wouldn't know a lot of people being polled, though. Polls are typically 1,000 to 2,000 people. They're very scientific and very whatever. They don't poll millions of people. So having said that, too, like I've gotten called on the phone for polls before, and I typically don't do it because I find it weird. I'm like, some strangers calling me, asking my opinion. I'm like, thank you, Louise. Appreciate the glasses. I'm always kind of like, I don't think so. I don't think so. Oh, okay. 98 says, okay, here's a great defense of Trump. Trump didn't say black people eat cats and dogs. He said black Haitian immigrants eat cats and dogs. Okay. So it's just some black people who eat cats and dogs and steal them from their neighbors. That makes you feel better about the man? By the way, the reason he picks on Haitians, and he's done this before, he called Haiti a shithole country, is because they're black. Like, the man was sued for racial discrimination against black people in housing in New York City. We've got incident after incident after incident of racist incident with this man. So bullshit, absolute bullshit for people trying to defend Trump and say, well, he said black Haitians eat cats and dogs. Not all. He said some black people eat cats and dogs. Not all black people. Well, good for you. You vote for him and you see how well that goes. Congratulations. No, I mean, this is the thing too. Like, the defense of Trump always cracks me up. You know what I mean? It's just like, no, he's only racist against some black people. Oh, well, good for you. Congratulations. Oh my. Anyway, oh, this is great. So the other thing Trump did today, Trump admitted today that Fox News is a Republican shill organization. Fox News is, we asked about this the other day. You guys apparently do know what Fox News is outside of the U.S. And thank you, Mike Gordon, again for the gift on YouTube. Fox News is a Republican propaganda organization on television. And Trump admitted today, he did an interview with them in the morning and was very upset that Fox News is publishing not even publishing, accepting advertising from Democrats. So they've done ads in favor of Trump. They've done ads criticizing Trump, right? Because it's a public place. They sell ads. Thank you, Frequency. Thank you, Debbie. Trump said today on Fox and Friends, the morning show, he doesn't like how the network is running negative ads about him. He says, quote, listen to this. I'm going to see Rupert Murdoch. Rupert Murdoch is the, far right Australian guy who runs Fox News, right? Listen, and Republican. Listen to this. I'm going to see Rupert Murdoch. I'm going to tell him something very simple because I can't talk to anybody else. Don't put on negative commercials for 21 days, Trump said. I'm going to say, Rupert, please do it this way, and then we have a victory. Yeah. That tells you all you need to know about Fox News. All you need. No other TV network would sit there and go, you want us not to accept ads from Republicans or not to accept ads from Democrats because they hurt you? Are you kidding me? Yeah, there we go. There we go. Unbelievable. All right, a little bit more here. Let's move on to Ukraine. That was it for the election news today. Let's move on to Ukraine. Sunday is Kamala Harris's birthday. That is correct. I didn't mention it because I was like, okay, whatever. But she turned 60 on Sunday, not 78 like Donald Trump. So yes, it is her birthday on Sunday. So let's move on to Ukraine. It is day 967, I think, of Vladimir Putin's 3-day special military operation. North Korean soldiers in Ukraine. That is correct, Taylor. Not good news. 2 different reports today about North Korean soldiers. First, Budanov, who's wonderful. He's Ukraine's spy chief, said that 11,000 North Korean troops will be ready to fight in Ukraine by November 1st. That's 2 weeks from now, guys. And then the South Korean spy agency said that North Korea has sent around 1,500 special forces troops to Russia for combat training before an expected deployment shortly in Ukraine. There's also a second transport operation scheduled for like a second segment of these special forces troops from North Korea. The Russians are outfitting them with Russian military uniforms, Russian weapons, and Russian ID in order to basically hide them and make it hard for the Ukrainians to know just how many North Koreans have been sent. Mind you, all you have to do is look at their, well, I shouldn't say that actually. I was going to look at their faces. It gets a little confusing because Russia has got eastern provinces. And the Russians in the east, some of them are like southeast, are Asian. So it does get sort of an interesting question of whether, I don't know, somebody who really knows Asia better, is it going to be that obvious the difference between a North Korean and somebody from one of the like Russian Asian areas nearby? Would it be that much of a difference, or would you know the difference when you saw them? Or basically for a Ukrainian or a Westerner, is it not that obvious? That I'm thinking like Mongolia, I'm thinking other places like that, although Mongolia is independent, right? But still, I mean, I know there's a difference, Maya. I'm saying, is it an obvious difference to like the Ukrainians? You know what I mean? Or whether you're going to look and go, in uniform, this guy's Asian, but is he Russian Asian? Is he North Korean? What is he, right? All right, some of you think it's obvious. Good. I mean, I hope it's obvious, to be honest. That's why I'm asking. And Bill, yes, there was some discussion that 18 of the North Koreans may have already defected, which is good if true. Okay. Oh, Maya, you say you're Russian and you can tell. Okay. Okay, good. I mean, that's actually good to hear because my concern was clearly the Russians want to hide these guys. So on its face, unmasking them is beneficial. What is interesting about, a couple of things are interesting about this. First of all, I was seeing talk yesterday that this could get North Korea more heavily involved in the war. So far, North Korea has directly provided humanitarian aid, but they're not providing other aid to the Ukrainians. Indirectly, South Korea, has reportedly provided artillery shells to Ukraine. They're basically letting the shells go through other countries. The question now becomes whether South Korea starts to directly provide military weapons to Ukraine in response to this. I think they probably will. For the West, it becomes a problem because this is kind of a huge deal. I mean, North Korean troops haven't, been at war since the Korean War, in the 1950s. And the idea that they're, first of all, fighting with the Russians, but also fighting in Europe, North Korean troops are basically invading Europe. That's really bad. And North Korea is a disaster. I mean, the guy's crazy that runs North Korea. This is very scary stuff. Now, will it be enough to make NATO change its mind? I don't think so. I mean, I think what Putin hopes is to basically bring in the North Koreans. It'll help him. And at the same time, he wants to make the Europeans and the Americans go, oh my God, so scary. It's very bad. Now, the one thing I will say is there is a little bit of hardy har, that the fact that the Russians are doing so badly that they have to go to, check notes, North Korea for help. I mean, North Korea is a basket case of a country. Like, it's interesting at least. I mean, it does say something, but men are men. I mean, the bodies are useful, right? It's very scary. It's scary. Are they going to feed the North Koreans? Who knows? Now, there's a question. Jacob said, should Poland or France also send troops? France had talked about it. The French are very interesting. The French President Macron, at the beginning of the war, was right before the war started. Thank you, Christock, for the pumpkin. Keep the gifts coming, guys. Right before the war started, the French president was running around kind of doing shuttle diplomacy, trying to get Putin to not invade. And he kind of thought he was going to convince Putin not to start the war. Everyone thought that was crazy. We were kind of pissed at the French a little bit because it was kind of like, stop it, right? Like, stop being so naive, thinking, oh, Putin doesn't really want to fight, this kind of stuff. Thank you, Mikey. And that has turned around. And France also was not providing weapons practically at all. They still haven't provided a lot, but what they provided has been pretty good. France has provided a lot of cruise missiles now to Ukraine. Additionally, they're now providing Mirage fighter jets, which are the same generation fighter jet as the F-16. So France got very interesting. I had read to you guys, I read and then read to you guys an article from Le Monde back in February of this year. Not in February of this year, earlier this year. Remember, this was the article that got me banned on TikTok for a week. Again, you got to love TikTok. We're not biased. Sure, you're not. Thank you, Mikey. This was the article in the French. Le Monde is like one of the most respected newspapers in the world. And I read an article and I translated it into English because I speak French. And that got me banned for a week on TikTok. And it was like, really? Le Monde, right? It's like, okay. But what the article said, at the risk of getting banned again, what the article said, thank you, Mikey, was that Macron, the president of France, totally shifted on Ukraine and Russia. That basically he did believe there was some chance of working with the Russians, blah, blah, blah. And after the Russians nearly killed the Greek prime minister in southern Ukraine, they like basically fired bombs near him, like a couple hundred feet away in southern Ukraine, and knew it. I mean, they knew they were putting the Greek prime minister's life at risk, and they didn't care. And after that, Medvedev, who's one of Putin's top guys, and he's crazy. Medvedev put out a statement because the French president was thinking of Macron coming to Ukraine the next month in March. I think it was the end of March. I don't quite recall. In March. And Medvedev said, basically, come here and we'll bomb you too. He said it in even stronger language. Basically, he issued a death threat against the French president. It's crazy. It freaked him out. I mean, it freaked Macron out. He was like, are you freaking kidding me? What was interesting is that's when you saw France go boom, right? Better military aid, much more hawkish on Russia. Macron also, at that point, that's when he made the comment where he said, we are considering sending military troops to Ukraine. And basically, he had said that he was going to wait to see if Russia launches a really big, invasion, a bigger invasion, if they try to go after Kyiv, the capital again, if they try to go after Odessa in the south. He said in that case, there was a likelihood they would send French troops. It wasn't clear if they would send French troops otherwise. This North Korea thing, this North Korea thing is the kind of thing that could lead to a world war. It could. It could, because I don't know how you can't let the Russians involve the North Koreans in a war in Europe. That's not acceptable. And you've got to make Putin pay a price. And the only price you can make him pay is starting to put some troops from NATO countries in Ukraine as well. I don't see how else you do it. And of course, Biden won't do it because Biden's going to be terrified of Putin, but it's very scary. It's very scary. What else we got here? Russian forces on October 17th, yesterday, suffered their second deadliest day since the start of the war. Ukraine's general staff reports 1,530 Russian casualties, that's injured or killed, over the past day. Their previous high was 1,740. Kyiv Independent reports that, so Trump, big surprise here. So Donald Trump opined about the war again, big surprise. Trump blamed... Of course. Oh, thank you, Jens. Trump gave his opinion on the war in Ukraine again, and you'll never guess who he blamed for the war. Ukraine and Joe Biden. The one person Trump never mentioned in the entire interview was Vladimir Putin. He's talking about Ukraine, the war in Ukraine, the invasion of Ukraine. He never mentions Vladimir Putin. He's talking about who's to blame for the war in Ukraine. Never mentions Vladimir Putin. We've talked about this repeatedly. There is something wrong in terms of Donald Trump and his relationship with Vladimir Putin. It's something he's not telling us. Donald Trump is terrified of criticizing Vladimir Putin. There's a reason he won't criticize Vladimir Putin, and he won't tell us what it is, and the American people have a right to know, because it's really, really freaking creepy, because he acts like Vladimir Putin owns him. He acts like Vladimir Putin is blackmailing him or something, but he acts like he, as the president of the United States, works for Vladimir Putin, an enemy of the United States. It is creepy as hell. So listen to this. Trump blamed the U.S. and Ukrainian leadership rather than Putin for the invasion. He says Biden instigated the war. Again, Biden instigated the war, and he largely blames Biden for the invasion. He also complained about Zelensky and the amount of aid the Ukrainians are getting. He goes, and that doesn't mean I don't want to help them, because I feel very badly for those people, but Zelensky should never have let that war start. Let's remind folks how the war started. Russia wanted to reconstitute the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union dissolved in 1991. The Soviet Union was a country made up of 15 countries. In fact, one of them was Russia that ran the whole show, and the other 14 countries were basically hostages. They were hostages of the Russians, basically. Thank you, Alan. Thank you, Jay Ticker. Thank you, Gypsy. When the Soviet Union dissolved, and it was a horrible dictator, I mean, murderous, horrible dictatorship in Russia and the Soviet Union, horrible. Well, I've been there, by the way. I visited as Russia, but I also visited the Soviet Union, and the Russians turn around. The Soviet Union dissolves in 1991. And the Russians are upset about this because the Russians lost a lot of power. Thank you, Jay Ticker. Thank you, Marie. The Soviets were horrible people. It was a brutal dictatorship. Ronald Reagan called them the evil empire, and they were. But they were powerful. They were a powerful force to be reckoned with. Russia's not. Russia's only power is it has nuclear weapons. Well, you know what? Pakistan has nuclear weapons too. You know, I mean, we have to worry about Pakistan because they got nukes. We have to worry about Russia because they've got nukes. It still is not that Russia is not our competition, right? China's our competition. Russia's not our competition. But because they got nukes, they're able to push us all around. In any case, after 1991, Soviet Union dissolves. Russia loses all the 14 hostages they had as part of the Soviet Union. Ukraine becomes free. Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, everyone becomes free. At the same time, Russia loses grasp on Eastern Europe. After World War II, remember World War II was a pact between the Nazis and the Russians. They basically got together and started World War II. And only 2 years into World War II did the Germans turn and attack the Russians. So all of a sudden, the Russians were then like enemies of the Germans, but only because their friends, the Germans, stabbed them in the back. Well, what does Russia do? Russia, helps us beat Germany. We actually sustained Russia. Russia wouldn't have survived if the U.S. and Britain and others did not sustain them with supplies throughout the war with Lend-Lease. But nonetheless, Russia fought in the war after their friends, the Germans, backstabbed them. What does Russia do when the war ends? Russia literally grabs half of Europe and holds it hostage. I mean, this is the thanks they do. And again, the Russians love to talk about how, you have us to thank for beating Hitler. What? You think the tens of millions of Europeans you held hostage for 50 years, for 45 years, in brutal communist dictatorships? I mean, Russia installed the worst communist dictatorships, murderous dictatorships in East Germany, Czechoslovakia, Hungary, Romania, Poland. Some of them were a little better than others. But like I said, East Germany, horrific. Romania, horrific. The dictatorships in these countries. They were all bad, but some of them were worse. Russia did this. Russia did this to Europe. And then 1989 came and Eastern Europe exploded and became free. And they threw off the Russian shackles. That's why Putin's upset. Putin was in Europe at much of that time in East Germany. Putin never forgave Gorbachev, who was the Soviet leader at the time, for basically letting the Europeans leave, letting the Czechs and the Hungarians and the Romanians and the Germans, letting them finally be free. That's why Germany is now one country. Before 1991, it was, or 1991 or 1989 or so, it was West Germany and East Germany. There were two countries, so to speak, because the Russians cut them in half. That's why Putin invaded Ukraine. He wants it all back. He thinks the Ukrainians don't exist. He thinks the Ukrainians aren't a real people. There's no ethnicity there, and they're just confused Russians, and he's going to get them back. So when Donald Trump says that Joe Biden is the reason that Russia invaded Ukraine, Donald Trump is quite literally doing Vladimir Putin's dirty work. He is quite literally making excuses for America's enemy. He is quite literally blaming America first. And this is something, it's a line that I wish the Democrats would use. Thank you, Cracker, for the hearts. I wish the Democrats would use this line, because Trump always says, America first. They ought to say, blame America first. That's all he does. He criticizes America. He says, we're not great. We're not good enough. International stuff, he blames. I mean, it just pisses me off. Anyway. All right, a little bit more here, not too much. Ukraine says it is not going to develop nuclear weapons. Denmark announced a $350 million military aid package for Ukraine. Germany and the Netherlands have detailed new military equipment being sent to Ukraine. Norway announced more than $270 million in aid. And Canada, we don't talk about Canada much. Canada plans to give Ukraine 64 million Canadian or 47 million US military aid package that will include small arms, ammunition, and protective gear. All right, that's it for the news. We will hang out now. I haven't put up the other auction items, but we do have 4 auction items up today. Thank you. Who's that? Chazak. We do have 4 auction items up already. I'm still doing the estate sale auction. So some stuff of my mom's. Really cool icon of hers that she made. A really cool Chinese vase. A nice, I like Christmas. I'm a crazy guy for Christmas. I love Christmas. Thank you, Betsy. Thank you, Louisa. And one of those Christmas music boxes. It's Santa making a bear, and it's very pretty. And then I'm forgetting what the 4th item was that I've already got up. But there's a lot. There's a lot. Exactly, Cole. And I think that's why I like Christmas. I love the decorations. I love the trees. I'm not going to show you everything right now, but I will show you briefly the mom's icon again, just to show you, because I'm very proud. Mom was an artist, but she spent like the last 10 or 15 years studying iconography. We're Greek Orthodox. And this is a very traditional Greek Orthodox icon done the correct way. But anyway, it's nice because also the gold is gold leaf, which is kind of cool. Anyway, there you see. Poppy was interested. We'll see if the rest of you are, but Poppy's bidding on it. So at least someone will get mom's icon, which I'm very happy. But yeah, we've got a lot of, I've got some other items I'm going to put up too. The auctions will end next Wednesday. So go check them out on Discord. The mods can sort of help you find Discord. On TikTok, actually, you can find Discord by going to the Linktree link in my profile on TikTok. If you're on a phone, well, you'll click the link. It brings up a whole series of links. Discord is on top. If you're on a phone, you've got to push and hold the Discord link down, and there will be a pop-up that says accept invite, and that'll work. Otherwise, it won't work. If you're on anything else, you can just click the link once and it'll work. Yeah, the Chinese vase as well. I wasn't sort of pulling it all because it's big, but there's a very nice Chinese vase. I'm trying to sort of not. All right, I'll pick up the Chinese vase. It is really a gorgeous Chinese vase. Oh, thank you for the gift there. Who is that, Cole? It's just a beautiful vase. I mean, it's got the little Chinese stamp on the bottom. I have no idea what it's worth. It's quite heavy. But we liked it so much. My sister was like, let's try to at least, sell it for the auction online because it's just such a nice piece, But anyway, very pretty. And I had a yadro I was going to put up. And in putting the mom's icon back the other day, I chipped the little finger off the yadro. And it's a really nice yadro. But now I'm kind of wondering if maybe, oops. Hang on, I dropped my microphone. I'm kind of feeling like you wouldn't notice, but I'm not happy. This Yadro's been around for 50 years. Chipped the little itty bit of a finger, and I'm annoyed. So I may just throw it out. It's not very noticeable, but to me, I'm like, I like those things to be perfect, So we'll see. I was going to auction it, but I'm not convinced now. We'll see. Anyway, it is almost an umbrella stand. Yeah. I can't find the finger. It literally is. It's a couple millimeters. Like what was broken was so small, I can't find it. So, the North Korea thing, forget the fact that the Ukrainians are alleging that the North Koreans have troops there. The South Koreans say that 1,500 special forces have been sent to Russia already. And that's South Korean intelligence. Thank you, Leah. Therefore, I would believe it. Yeah, I believe it. Again, I don't disbelieve the Ukrainians, but when the South Korean spy agency says it about North Korea, I am much like that's much more of a direct source, So anyway, oh boy. Yeah, there was a video as well, supposedly of North Korean troops in Russia as well. I like doing Christmas stuff, though. We're talking about it on YouTube. My brother said, do you still do Christmas stuff? I was like, oh, my God. He doesn't put up a tree. I was like, oh, every year I put up. Well, I usually came to my mom's at Christmas, so I wouldn't do a tree. But if I'm back in D.C., I've got a nice 6-foot tree that I think my sister got me, actually. Gorgeous. Yeah, I think she did get it for me. Beautiful Christmas. It's an artificial tree, but it's gorgeous. I have lots of ornaments, even more ornaments this year because I've got some of the ones from the house here. But I bought a lot of old ornaments on eBay, which it sort of hit me. I said, maybe eBay, because I like old ornaments. I was like, maybe eBay's got them. They're a little small. Like I like the bigger ones, but I got a bundle of 60 of these ornaments for cheap. So I have a lot of nice little ornaments now. I'm very happy. Anyway, what do you think the agreement was between North Korea and Putin? The big question there is, what are the Russians providing the Koreans, the North Koreans? And we don't know. It's scary. It's very scary. The concern is, are they providing them like satellites or satellite technology is some of the concern. Are they going to help which also helps their nuclear program? Are they going to help their nuclear program in other ways? It's It's very scary, and it's very screwed up. It's very screwed up. It's typical for the Russians to be doing this. It's just it's crazy. I mean, they're not crazy. They're just Putin's an asshole, basically. You know, you have the Christmas lights you can program to any color. I have not gone that far yet. A Festivus poll. That is kind of fun. No, actually, that's true. At some point, we can see. At some point, we'll buy Philips Christmas lights or something. Thank you, Hedge, for the gift. But we'll see. Right, missile tech. Right, because the North Koreans keep testing their ballistic missiles. Yep. What else, guys? Beep, 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 beep. Just looking here. Food. What about food? Jens just said the same thing about food. What about it? I think Jens says food, and then Jacob says food. I'm like, what? What about food? The war has to end in Ukraine. It does, and the best way for that to happen is for Russia to pull out and go home and stop invading its neighbors. 60,000, and we can do more. Exactly. Click those likes on the show today on TikTok. Thank you for pointing that out, Carol. More or less, Rick. It's apparently a little more complicated. Rick just asked, is it true that a convicted felon can't vote in the United States? I always thought the answer was correct, that yes, you cannot vote if you're a convicted felon. Certain states, it seems to have changed. I don't know how many, but in some states, apparently you can now. I think it depends. So I believe it's state-based, which kind of makes sense because elections are like election law tends to be voted in the state. It is state by state now. That's what I thought. Yeah. Yep. Because traditionally, we always thought it was no, you can't vote, but now it depends on the state. Yep. Nordic Warrior, thank you for that. Says a day ago, according to Euromaidan Press, Greek and Ukraine has made a security cooperation agreement. I did see that, which is great. I didn't really report on it because Ukraine has done a lot of these bilateral security agreements with countries, and I'm not entirely sure what they mean. I mean, it's a good thing, I guess, because it's better than those countries aligning with the Russians. So they're clearly aligning more with Ukraine, but I never quite know what the actual impact that is, I don't know, Tyranchilla. There's a good question. On federal, so are the states able to change whether you can vote in a federal election or only in state elections? Meaning, can the state say you're a felon, but you can vote in our state House of Representatives, but you can't vote in the national because that's a federal thing? I just don't know. Of course we do. Baseball playoffs? Not at all, Louis. Zero. I didn't even know they were happening. Baseball's this late? I had no clue. I was going to say, but in terms of felons voting, we make up for it in one way. We let felons run for president. We let felons serve as president, and we let felons basically serve as president in prison. Donald Trump could be in prison and he could still be president. That's how crazy our system is. Yeah. So, not all felons are discriminated against, sadly. Yeah, the Greece stuff, there was a horrible civil war in Greece with the communists and the other guys. I mean, both after World War II. Okay. Gunther says states dictate procedures for federal elections. Okay. Ukraine losing more territory. I mean, it's not good. Although it's not clear how much they're losing. They have lost some key towns, small towns. I don't tend to trust the Russians because the Russians lie. So I'm not going to trust them when they say it. But, it still is a tie, but Russia is inching slowly forward. I don't know you, sir, but because of you, I'm improving my English. Okay, good. Universoi. I mean, I'm not sure how I'm improving your English. I will say this. I speak very quickly, but I have sort of historically enunciated a lot because I did a lot of speech. I did debate in high school. I did drama, too. And both things, doing plays and stuff. And I've done a lot of television stuff too. You're sort of taught to try to speak very clearly. And I have a hard time speaking slowly, but I think I do speak very clearly, which is good. And I know people who are not Anglophones, English speakers right away, have told me that they say you speak fast, but I can understand you. So hopefully that helps. I'm glad to hear it. Is there a shift to right-wing ideologies globally? I mean, over the last decade, we were worried about it, right? But it's kind of been going back and forth a little bit, you know? I mean, in England, in the UK, the right-wingers didn't do as well. We thought they were, I mean, the far right, we thought they would. In Brazil, it's kind of gone back and forth. In Hungary, bad. Slovakia, bad. America, bad. I mean, these are not small places, right? Austria, forget it. But Austria, of course, has always been a little bit of a lost cause. I mean, big surprise. The Austrians have like, you know, Nazi lovers back in power. Yeah, there's a surprise, you know, but still not good. Thank you, Naisha, for the gift, and Lorraine. But, you know, what I think will happen now that Sinwar has been taken out, Lucia asks. So I don't know. Lucia is talking about the Middle East, that basically the Israelis killed the head of Hamas in Gaza. Big deal. The guy was criticized Israel for the rest of the stuff. This guy was a terrorist, huge terrorist. He masterminded the terror attack on Israel on October 7th that started this whole thing. The Israelis killed him this week, which was very good news. You know, what happens next? I mean, sorry, my nose, my allergies are itching now. Some people think that maybe this is an opportunity for peace. Thank you, Anne, for the gift, because he was one of the hardliners that was, keep in mind that as bad as Netanyahu is, the Israeli leader, Hamas keeps turning down ceasefires. Hamas broke the ceasefire on October 7th. That's what started the whole war this time around. Hamas broke the ceasefire. Then they reached another ceasefire in the middle of the war. Hamas broke it. So part of the problem has been Hamas, not just the, and again, Netanyahu, you guys know this. He's an idiot. I mean, I don't like the Israeli leader at all. I think he's a warmonger, meaning I think he just wants war. I don't like him. But the Hamas leadership is a bunch of terrorists who definitely want war. I mean, they wanted Israel to kill civilians because they wanted it to look bad for Israel. They hide behind civilians on purpose so that Israel has to kill them and Israel looks bad because Hamas doesn't care about Palestinians. So some people hope that this guy being killed means maybe he'll be replaced by somebody who's more willing to reach peace. I don't know. You know what I mean? I don't know. I kind of think that, Hamas is a terrorist organization. They're going to find another terrorist to take over, basically. Thank you, Boo. I'm calling Boo. Incredibly tired. I'm calling you Boo. It said Boo the Ghost. Having said that, he's a bad man. So the world is going to be a better place without him. Yes. But I'm not, both sides have to want peace for it to happen. And up until now, neither side has wanted it. No problem, Lucia. It's a good question, and it's an interesting question, and it was a very interesting development. Like I said, that they got this guy. It's a big deal. But thank you, Norway, for the gift, and Jeremy. Next guy could be worse. Thank you, Ally. So good question. Ally says next guy could be worse, meaning Hamas leadership. I've told you guys this before, that I had studied at Georgetown. They have a really, I did a law degree there, but they also have their School of Foreign Service is arguably the best international relations school in the U.S., possibly the world. But even the recent rankings showed we were number one, and I've got my master's there. It's an international public policy degree, I would call it. It's sort of training you to be a government, ambassador, minister, whatever, but learning about the history, learning about policy, etc. And one of the things we were taught there was that, and I always sort of laugh when I tell you this because it's almost a very clinical analysis of assassinations, but you want to be very careful with assassinations as a government taking other people out, or as an individual. As a terrorist group trying to kill leaders, because just because you kill a bad leader doesn't mean somebody worse isn't going to come next. And you always want to know who's coming worse or who's coming next, so that and this was one of the concerns about going into Iraq in 2003 was Saddam Hussein was a strong man that held the country together. He was a horrible dictator, but he held the country together. If Saddam Hussein dies, does the country fall apart? And you've got to worry about that. Russia, same thing. Putin is a horrible dictator. It would be great if Putin disappeared. Does that mean the next person is going to be better? No. Could the next person be worse? Yes. Right. So that's something that, as I forget who it was that just said, was it Lucia? I don't know, that you've got to be, will the next person that replaces this Hamas guy be better? Maybe. Will he be worse? Maybe. I am single, Nance, although I like the boys, so can't help you on that account if you know anybody. Who do I think is winning the election? I think it really is a tie, and it scares me. It scares me. I think it really is a tie, which means Trump could win this. Yeah. Let's see. We got a couple of weeks left, but this is scary stuff. It's very close. It's very close. She has not lost yet, but it shouldn't be this close. Because also she's pretty good. Like I mean, it's even more annoying because like Biden was Biden. Biden was white bread. Biden was like American white bread. He was okay. He was important for defeating Trump. Thank you, Swan, for resubscribing. But so I could see with Biden, people going, well, he's old and he's this and he's that, right? With Kamala Harris, and I was talking to somebody about this the other day who said, he wouldn't vote for Trump, but he wasn't loving Harris. And I said, you know what? What's wrong with her? She's smart. She's interesting. She's funny. She's nice. I like her personality. She's clearly boom, boom. I mean, she knows her stuff. She's clearly a smart woman, which I like. I like that. I like sort of the intelligent leader. She has a lot of ideas, a lot of proposals. They're not crazy. You know what I mean? I really don't understand how you look at Donald Trump, who literally, if a rock were running for president, you should vote for them over Donald Trump. It doesn't matter. I think Pete Buttigieg or somebody else said this the other day. I forgot who it was, but they were asked about Trump and everything else. And they said, well, you just told us why we shouldn't vote for Trump, but you haven't told us why we should vote for Kamala Harris. And it might have been Buttigieg. I'm not sure. And he said, I don't need to tell you why you should vote for Kamala Harris. You should vote for a turnip if that's the opponent to Donald Trump. He goes, you literally don't even need an excuse other than that, because he is such a danger to this country and such a horrible human being. So yeah, but no, I think she's a woman. She's black. And I will tell you this, the fact that the black community, according to polls, is less interested in this election than the last 5 elections, like that they're the least amount of enthusiasm when your candidate is black, is insane to me. And maybe it's, I don't know, maybe it's black men being sexist, which Barack Obama kind of said, but it's just boggles my mind. Now, men are sexist too. She's not just having a problem with black men. She's having a problem with men overall. We know that. Men tend to be more Republican, but men also tend to be sexist. She's losing, not loosing, and speaking lies in Michigan. Funny you should bring that up, Henry, because I don't know if you saw what happened today in Michigan. Donald Trump went to woo the Muslim vote in Michigan. And literally minutes before he went to meet this local Republican mayor who's like endorsing Donald Trump and he's going to be so good for the Arabs. Let me read you this is hilarious. Let me read you what Trump did. Okay. Trump goes and he tries to convince, like I said, the Arabs in Michigan that, I'm going to be good in the Middle East. You'll see me. Come on. Where is this? It was this so cracked me up. Hold on. Trump is tired. Oh, here we go. So Trump goes to woo the Arabs in Michigan today and tell them, I'm going to be great. You watch me with Israel. You're going to love me with Gaza. Here's what Trump said minutes before. Trump says he's got a call. He's doing a phone call soon with Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu, and he's going to tell the Israeli leader he's doing a good job in the war. And then Trump criticized Joe Biden. Why? Because Joe Biden is trying to hold back Netanyahu. Trump criticized Biden because he said Biden is trying to stop the Israelis from killing more Palestinians, and Trump wants them to. And that up until now, all the people that have died in Gaza, Trump says that's a good job. So yeah, feel free to tell me why Kamala Harris is worse. As for, just ban anybody that claims that Kamala Harris isn't black. That's just the racist talking. Kamala Harris is black and Indian, actually. She's both. She's 50% each, which is okay. You're able to be black and Indian. Yes, she's both. But it's all the racists that are trying to get out there and say, no, she's not. again, it's literally racism. I mean, it's all out racism. Yeah, but yeah, she's both. She's both. Oh no, I'm not knocking you. I'm just telling you. I was just sort of informing you as a larger question, because also her identity is more black. Clearly, you don't. All these years of her being in the public eye, it hasn't really been a big deal that she's an Indian American. She has been more sort of this public-facing black woman, just because. I think also think of your identity. I think of my friend Marcos, actually, Marcos Mulitsas, Daily Kos founder, who's I love Marcos, good friend. And Marcos definitely, he is Greek and Latino, but I think Marcos identifies more as Latino than Greek, even though he's 50-50. That happens. Depending on your ethnicity and how you're raised, you identify more with one community than the other. But you're both. Yeah. But it doesn't make him not Latino. He clearly is. And to white people, he's definitely Latino. That's the thing with Kamala Harris. Ask a white person to look at Kamala Harris, and you know what they see? They see a black woman. They don't go, oh, she's not black. They go, oh, she's black. Yeah. And that's what matters. I mean, not that it matters, but it matters in terms of, what people think. Yes, I wish we were beyond the racism, but we're not. The latest in the polls are stuck. They've gotten tighter, which is not good. Donald Trump is doing a little bit better, but it is still a tie. And the question then becomes, if the polls are right, Harris wins. If the polls are wrong, like they've been before, meaning typically Donald Trump does better on election day than the polls suggest. The polls always suggest Donald Trump is doing a little worse than he is. Traditionally, if that's true this time, Donald Trump wins. If the polls are correct this time, Kamala Harris wins. That's how freaking crazy it is right now. Very scary. Very scary. Thank you, Lise. It's insane that they're still close, Petite. It's absolutely, I mean, it is. It's offensive that the polls are still this close. And as I said, Kamala Harris, she's fine. She's absolutely fine. There's no, thank you, KT. I mean, she's smart. She's interesting. I think she's got good policy proposals. She's probably a little more liberal than I am. Thank you, Mustard. Right? A little more liberal than I am. But on its face, Kamala Harris is not the kind of person you look at and go, oh my God, she's horrible. Oh, come on. Give me a break. Right? And I'd say the same about Republicans. What's her face? Nikki Haley. Nikki Haley, like way too Republican for my taste, way too conservative, but she's totally qualified to be president. She's just not the person I want there, but she's totally, I mean, I wouldn't say she's fine, but you know what I mean? Like looking at her, I wouldn't say, oh, she's awful. No, she might be awful on policy you disagree with, but she's not an awful person. And she's clearly not fit to be president. Same thing with Kamala Harris. You may disagree with her on some policies, but she's clearly fine. Donald Trump, totally unfit to be president. Not even talking about his policies as a human being. He's totally unfit to be president. Tried to violently overthrow the government. I don't have to go through the list here. He tried to violently overthrow the government. That should be enough. Sexually assaulting 24 women, that ought to bother you too, to be honest. 35 felonies, 34 felonies, 34, I think. Hard to keep track with Trump how many felonies, because he's been accused of 85 felonies, but I think he's 34 he's been found guilty of. It just goes on and on and on and on. Anyway. But also, but the other thing we don't know, this is good for Kamala Harris, is so polls in the past have underestimated Donald Trump's strength. But at the same time, the last 2 years, Democrats have blown elections out of the water unexpectedly, meaning Democrats have done way better than expected the last 2 years because of Roe v. Wade. Donald Trump got the right to an abortion basically killed in America. You had a constitutionally protected right to abortion, but also sexual health in general, contraceptions, everything else. According to the U.S. Supreme Court for 50 years, Trump got it killed. He intentionally picked Supreme Court justices who would take away a woman's right to an abortion, and they did. And he said it. He said he was doing it, and then afterwards he bragged about it repeatedly, that he's responsible for taking the right to an abortion away from women across America. And men too, by the way, not just the women. I always even have to stop myself. Thank you, Brinkman. Because it's not just women. If you get a woman pregnant, you've got an interest there too, right? Especially if you're young. If you're in college and you and she, you get pregnant and you have no choice because Donald Trump, the Republicans took it away from you. Do you really want to have a baby at age 19 or age 15? That's a big deal. So it's not just women this is affecting. It affects men too, you know. Um, but yeah. So what has happened is in a lot of the elections of the last 2 years, I think all of them really, Democrats have done remarkably well. Like every election happened, like it was like state legislatures, things like this, and typically the election would happen and all the political watchers and the media would go, holy cow, this was Democrats did way better than we thought they would. So is that what's going to happen? Or is Trump going to pull what Trump does, where a lot of Americans like a fascist? You know, it's very scary. Very scary. Roy says, I lived 5 years in America, couldn't make out American football or how you vote. Football's a little weird, especially because like a lot of the sports, the points are funny. It's like, was it 1 point? I forget now. Is it? I don't even remember anymore football. Like how many points it is for is a touchdown 7 points? I never remember. But like a field goal is 1 point or maybe a couple. I can't remember anymore. There's all sorts of weird points with that. Yes, it's very confusing. 6? I don't know. Oh, it's the 1 extra point. Okay, sorry. See, I'm showing my lack of sports. 3 points for a field goal. Okay, see, I knew it was like different numbers. Actually, the bad one is tennis. Let's face it, tennis is just stupid. 15, 30, 45, or whatever the hell it is. That's just dumb. I mean, who came up with that? You know? But football is, I think any sport is confusing. The details can be confusing. You know? Our most U.S. left party is center right compared to the rest of the world. So what Anonymous Heather is saying is this used to be said is that most American politics is in the middle anyway, like whether you're right or left, it's kind of the same thing. And that overall, you're all a little bit to the right in terms of the rest of the world. Not anymore. Not anymore. I mean, we've got, I don't know. I mean, it's, I guess maybe it's this way. On the fringes, we got even more right. The Republican Party has become somewhat fascist. The Democratic side is still where it is. The Democratic side is not right-wing, but in comparison to most of the developed world, the Democratic side is more conservative, right? Because they're not socialist. I mean, the Republicans, oh, you're socialist, you're communist. They're not socialists, right? France has socialists. America does not have real socialists. Not as I mean, Bernie Sanders, but that's about it. Bernie Sanders would be center-left. Yeah, maybe for a European country, maybe. I don't know, because Bernie used to be full-on like Marxist. So I wonder. Although I guess he still is a capitalist now. Yeah. But you know, yeah, but it's not going to happen, Rick. I mean, I wish the Democrats would stop bootlicking Israel. Every American president supports Israel. This is sort of one of my problems with young people who get. I mean, feel free to disagree. That's okay, right? That you don't like it. But young people are like, I don't like the Democrats because they support Israel. Well, newsflash, every American president and every major American political party supports Israel, period. Like they do. So like you could either say, well, I'm going home, I don't care. Or you could say, you know what, on that issue, I disagree with both parties. I wish America wasn't as pro-Israel, but on every other freaking issue, the Republicans suck. Because I care about the environment. I care about war. I care about, the economy. I care about health. I care about my student loans, everything. And the Republicans suck on that. So I don't disagree. I mean, I do disagree with you because I'm more pro-Israel, but my only thing is that when you see like the protesters and everything else, there is a naivete there. It's fine to protest because you're upset about the policy, but it's incredibly naive to think, well, I'm just not going to support them, the Democrats, because they support Israel. That's just naive because every major politician in America supports Israel, basically. And the American presidents do for a variety of reasons, including the strategic national defense aspects of it, and they just do. But you don't throw out every other policy you care about, including the environment, because one thing they disagree, So, good question, Rob. If Trump loses, does he flee the country to avoid prosecution? If so, what countries would accept him? That's really interesting. I got the best. Well, I'll tell you in a second, Sobo. That's a really interesting question. I don't know. I mean, he could go to Russia, obviously. He might go to Russia. They love him there. If all the Russians have to do is pay him $1 billion, he'll go to Russia. I don't know. It's an interesting question. I don't know. But I mean, other than Russia, I don't know where else he'd want to go other than Russia, you know? Best wedding I ever attended? That's easy. My cousin Paul's wedding. Oh my God. He and his husband Ellie have got married in Napa Valley in California and held a 3-day extravaganza, invited us all. We had to fly out there. We had to pay for the hotels, of course, but they did a weekend of just all catered affairs from, I mean, dinners and lunches and, I mean, cooking school at the Culinary Institute of America. We took a cooking class. We did a winemaking class. And the dinner, oh my God, they had, I forget how many wine course, how many, they had a wine for every course. We had like 5 wines. And the wines were like $50 bottles of wine, each wine we all had. I mean, it was an insane, but it was wonderful. But they stop talking about it now, but they did it because they knew, first of all, that's what they like. They like the wine, they like the food, and they didn't want to force family to travel. So they said, if we're going to hold something far away, oh, they're still married. Oh yeah. If we're going to hold something far away and make you pay to come, then we're going to pay for the weekend and make sure we've given you way more back. And they did. It was a glorious weekend of food and liquor and everything else. Oh my God. And then they just did a birthday party in Philadelphia. The same thing. They held it at the, what's it called? The, you know what, oh my God, the eye and the triangle, you know, those people. Ben Franklin was one of them. I'm having a brain fart now. That temple, the building they've got right in the middle of Philadelphia. Beautiful old building. But, you know, the Masonic, thank you. Masonic, exactly. The Illuminati, they held a birthday party there that was just, well, it was a birthday weekend. No, they're wonderful guys. The thing is, they like to live well. That's where I wore the red jacket. Exactly. They like to live well and they like to share it with. So it's not being ostentatious. They spend a lot of money on food and drink and travel. That's what they do. They love it and they can afford it. And they like to share it with family. And they look at the parties and birthday parties and things as an opportunity to invite family and give us all a wonderful weekend. And it's just the sweetest thing. So yeah, it was amazing. Absolutely amazing. So yes, that is when I wore my red Chinese jacket. Exactly. My communist jacket. I'm making you thirsty. It was I make you hungry too. Oh my God, the food that weekend. I mean, the food in California was insane, but Philadelphia was also just insane quality food. Now his husband, just a point of bragging here, Eliev, whose birthday it just was in Philadelphia, my cousin's husband, is one of the 3 people who invented Gardasil, who is the HPV vaccine for cervical cancer. And he's one of the 3 that the original at Merck that invented the vaccine. Now there's, follow-on vaccines and everything else. Thank you, Hellfire. He doesn't work on it anymore. He did the first one, the first big one. But that's sort of Eliev's claim to fame, which is very cool. Yeah, very. He was like interviewed in all the articles. Like he really was one of the 3 scientists who ran the whole thing. Very cool. Yeah. Like Jonas, exactly. Our own Jonas Salk. I'll have to tell him that. It was though. I was like, and he's the sweetest guy too. Nicest guy. Very smart, of course, but sweet, nice, loving. Just they're great people. Yeah. But yeah, it's a really neat accomplishment. Because he had actually advised me to take it, like in my 40s. Like we were talking. I don't want to give you medical advice, but we were talking about it. And anyway, I'm a big proponent of the shots as well. People should get them early. But anyway, what else? You have it actually in schools for the kids. Really, Jeremy? Where is that? Like, where is that in general? I don't want to get people in trouble. Yeah, Australia. That's like Canada claiming credit for, who was it? Alexander Graham Bell, or who was it that they were claiming credit for? We had a discussion about that recently. We were like, yeah, sure. 6/18. We may go soon here. It's already October 18th. It is October 18th, but it's already 20 after. So should we take all of Canada's oil? I like the Canadians. I wouldn't do that. I think they're nice. So over here in UK, we created everything. Yeah. Oh, with their doctor. Yeah, the doctor, I wouldn't think in the schools. That would be, or in Europe, that's different. You're in Europe. That's right, Jeremy. Okay, yeah. That they have Gardasil in the schools. That's good. They should. I mean, it's literally cancer. It's crazy. And this country became controversial because it's cancer that you can get via sex, but you can also get it through kissing, through touching. I mean, like a vaccine that stops cancer should not be controversial. And by the way, it can cause, my dad had oral cancer. It can cause oral cancer. It can cause all sorts of nasty stuff. 10 days to Ashley's birthday. Okay, we'll have to keep that in mind. Keep it in mind. And in Canada, they have it in schools in Canada. Really interesting. Wow. The kids should get it young. They really should get it young because it doesn't take much to get infected. There's a number of different variants, of course. I forget whether there's 10 or 12 or 15 or whatever, but it used to be just 4 originally that they were vaccinating against. But it takes, actually there were 6. Well, there was like 6 originally, I thought. But in any case, but the thinking is when you're not very old, you will start to pick up some of the variants, but you may not get all of them. So the vaccine really helps to stop you from getting infected with, and the vaccine might even help in terms of whether the infection turns into cancer eventually. For Gardasil, the HPV vaccine. So it's a huge deal. People should get it. It's expensive though. If insurance doesn't cover it, I paid for it. I think it was 150 or 175 a shot, but I was like, you know what? A cancer vaccine, I'll pay $600 or $500 for that, you know? So yeah. Of course. Well, we got rid of him. He's hilarious. We had an anti-vaccine nut on here. He's gone. Oh, Elizabeth, sorry to hear that. My mom did too. No, she had uterine. She had your cervical is the scary. She had uterine, right? Not cervical. Right. I know anti-vaxxers. Woo, haven't had them in a while. God. Well, we have an entire political party of anti-vaxxers now, sadly, but what do you do? I don't know. Warg is asking, thank you, Shelley. Warg is asking, do you think Norway has done well regarding this war with Ukraine? They have been pioneers on a lot of politics being pushed regarding weapons deliveries. I mean, from what I know, I don't, look, as an American, I don't pay a lot of attention to Norway. You know, Americans are that way. But Norway, I know, has been giving a lot of aid, just because I see that a lot. And I know the Norwegians are a huge part of NATO. I mean, meaning my NATO friends told me, oh, the Norwegian troops are amazing. Like they, you know, so in terms of, so they're like, their involvement in the alliance is very good and very respected. In Ukraine, I'd have to see where they are on the list. But I do know that the Norwegians have given a lot of aid because you see them pop up a lot. Even today, I don't know if today, I had Denmark today. I don't think I had Norway in the news today. I don't think so. I don't remember. But I couldn't tell you overall. I guess you'd kind of have to look at where they rank, you know, based on their GDP and everything in terms of the aid they've given. I don't recall. But the Scandinavians have done quite well. So I wouldn't be surprised if Norway is close to the top, at least in the top 10. Because I know it was several Scandinavian countries, or we say Scandinavian, whichever, Nordic, that were in sort of the top. What are you doing? My dog is walking around, scratching herself on the floor as she does. She may want to go out. That's funny you said that, bad omen. I was looking around because I was like, all right, what is she doing? She's not at the door yet. I don't know what she's doing. She disappeared on me here for a moment. Oh, she's behind the chair. That's why. Yeah, she may have to go out in a second. The Baltics have been hugely instrumental. Oh yeah, the Baltics have been great. Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia. That's a given. They're always good on dealing with Russia, of course. Poland's been great. You know, that's funny. Britain is the #1 creator of Independence Days. That's very funny. Well, we were talking to the Canadians about that the other day, about Canadian National Day or whatever you call it. And I said, you don't call it Independence Day because, of course, you know, are they independent? Well, now she's looking at the door. Okay, the dog's got to go out, guys. I'm going to get going. It's already 20 after the hour. Remember, tomorrow we've got our show. I'm taking this out for subscribers only. So that's 10:30 a.m. Chicago time, 11:30 a.m. East Coast time, TikTok, YouTube, Discord. Look for me there, guys. Otherwise, I'll see the rest of you on Monday. All right. Yeah, the dog, well, she ate, but now she's correct. She wants her toothbrushing time, Roy. You are very correct. She's a Yorkie Bichon. Lovely dog, very demanding. Thank you, incredibly tired. Thigh. Okay. Thank you, Daniela. She's literally kicking the door now. Okay, gotta go. She made me jump. See you guys. Okay. Jesus Christ.